Hello, welcome to Dregs. I'm James Watt, and my guest today is Andy Needham, owner of Approved Foods, a business on a mission to reduce food waste, and like me, an entrepreneur who was turned down by the den. Hi Andy.
Nice to meet you.
You've taken lunch.
Just brought a few examples of the kind of things we do, but we'll talk about them a little bit later, yeah?
So before we get to the den, tell me a little bit about the business. What does Approved Foods do?
So Approved Food is a 100% online direct-to-consumer retail business. We started over 15 years ago and we sell value for money products direct to the end consumer and offer convenience and value, like I say. We buy problem stock, and that problem stock is usually driven by short best before dates, products past best before, changes in packaging design, cancelled orders, overstocks. You know, every business, every manufacturing business, distribution business has got stock that is a problem to them. We buy that stock at cheap prices and sell it to our customers at cheap prices.
Food waste is actually a huge contributor to the sustainability issues we're facing as a species on this planet. You're doing your bit to solve that.
The amount of food that is wasted is absolutely criminal. It's not just the food itself, it's the resources that go into manufacturing, transporting, energy, everything that goes into producing food. And so much of it just ends up as waste, landfill, and not consumed by humans. And the damage we're doing to our planet now, future generations are going to suffer massively for it. A lot of it boils down to education. So there are different dates involved with food. So you've got your best before date and you've got use by. There's other dates that are thrown into the mix, display until, sell by, all these kind of things. All they do is confuse the consumer about the product and whether it's fit to eat or it isn't fit to eat. Use by, it does have health implications. So we don't deal with any use by products. It is illegal to sell them past the use by date. And if you consume them past that, there is a chance you might get ill. So it's things like fresh chicken, ham, pate, those kind of items that can develop listeria and all the other kind of things.
Would you go to jail if you sold them?
Potentially, yes. Yeah, it is a criminal act, and environmental health and trading standards, people like that, they take a very dim view of any retailer selling products past the use by date.
So what's the difference between best before date and use by date?
So best before date is just an indication of the quality of the product. And a lot of the time it's an arbitrary date. So for example, tins of soup get put with 3 years date on. They'll last 5, 8, 10 years quite easily. A lot of products that are naturally preservatives, honey gets a date on. Going back, they found jars of honey in the Egyptian pyramids from 40,000 years ago.
You don't sell them, do you?
And we haven't got a jar of it. Okay. We've got some Manuka in at the moment, which is an exceptional product as well. The arbitrary dates that are put on products and the lack of education of what that date means that a lot of people, it's past its date, they throw it away and then they go out and buy again. The products that are thrown away is where a lot of the waste happens. So educating about what a best before date actually means is critical. We've got a lot of savvy customers. They know the difference between best before, whether it's a week before or a week after. The product don't know what date we put on it. Use the smell, the sniff test, and if it smells all right, it tastes all right, then consume it.
I love this business. You're giving people, families all over the UK exceptional value at a time when the economy is tough, but you're also helping save the planet through reducing food waste.
Yeah, the times are very, very tough at the moment. Obviously, we went through the COVID period, which exceptional hardship for a lot of people, but we never really recovered from that. We went straight into problems with energy, people shortages, driver shortages, cost of containers, logistics. So many negative factors, fuel prices. Now, with interest rates being raised to the level they have, food inflation was running at 20%, which is a ridiculous number. I've never seen that in the 20 odd years I've been involved in the industry. And what we've got now is there's a whole strata of people who just don't have the cash in their pockets to spend. You'll see that in the hospitality industry, on the high street, and because we provide value for money products, demand for our services are just going up and up and up.
So let's go back a few years. When and why did you decide to take this business into the den?
Yeah, going back a couple of years before that, I bought my first food business, Morris & Son, 21 years ago now. And that business has always bought problem stock from manufacturers and distributors and sold in business to business into the retail, the value retail sector. When it started 60 years ago, Morris and his son Stephen, they were market traders, and they started buying a bit of extra stock, got a lock-up garage and started wholesaling to other market traders. And that was where value was for sale in the country. Over the last 20 years, the landscape has changed massively. So you've had the growth of the home bargains, bargain madness, the pound lands, pound stretchers, all these kind of guys have come in, and they are now where the value sector on the high street sits. So my business supplies those guys. It's still going now, still going strong, and we clear for a lot of the major manufacturers, household names in the country. The approved food side is an interesting area. So Dan Cludery was the founder of Approved Food. He was actually a software technician for Sony Ericsson, and they had a plant, I think it was in Mansfield, 400 people. They shut it down about 18 years ago, made everybody redundant, moved it to Malaysia or somewhere like that. So he became a market trader. His father-in-law was a market trader. So father-in-law said, why don't you work the markets, earn a little bit of money? So he became a customer of mine about 18 years ago. So he'd turn up in his knacker green van, fill it up with product out of the warehouse. He'll go and work Doncaster, York markets around the place, come back the day after, fill the van up, go off and work the markets. As a market trader, with all the pitching and
tough gig, huh?
2 for £1, 3 for £1, all that kind of thing. Because of his software background, back bedroom type thing, he put a little bit of a website together, called it Approved Food, because he knew he was selling products that a lot of people might think, hang on a minute, is that safe to eat? Why is it so cheap? So he put that together, and he started getting orders for the few items that were on the back of his van. Going back again, this might even before your time, but when Martin Lewis started Money Saving Expert as a website, he had the forums, and there was a lot of chat about approved food on the forums. Martin Lewis was on Lorraine's sofa one January morning, and he just mentioned, if you want to save money on your food and grocery shopping, have a look at approved food. Dan at that time was in a tiny room, garage size, not a lot of stock, not anything really, 5 orders a day, 6 orders a day, and that appearance on the telly, 300 orders in the day. So it shows the power of TV, but he had absolutely nothing, just basically him, and no cash, no stock, just nothing. Let everybody down, website crashed, all that kind of thing. A couple of days later, he came up to the warehouse in Leeds, where we were at the time, and we were just chatting about what went off. I'd had a previous career, 5-6 years in venture capital, and over that time, I've gone through the first dot-com boom and bust, so the 98, 99, 2000, 2001. Saw some absolutely ridiculous things that were put forward and backed at that time, and you've got things like the lastminute.com, which is good, the Boohoo's and things like that, but a whole raft of businesses that didn't make it. But I could see then that the internet was going to be the future. It didn't really exist, but you could see if you got a proper service, a proper product, the internet was going to be where the action was. So when Dan was telling me the story, I just said, look, I'll come down and have a look at how you set up. I got different skill sets to Dan. Dan had got the sales gab and the technical side. I've got supply chain, all the other elements that were required. So between us, we got all the elements to set up a proper company. So we set up Approved Food Limited in the October 2009. We had about 3 staff. We were in 2,000 square foot and started the process of building a proper online business. In the first 3 years, we moved 3 times, 2,000, 6,000, 15,000, 20,000 square foot. In the early stages, the producers of Dragon's Den kept getting in touch. We'd like you to apply. We'd like you to come on the show. And we kept saying, no, we're not interested. We don't need it. And then on about the 4th time, we just sat chatting one morning and said, what's the worst that can happen? We'll get a bit of publicity. We didn't really need the money, but if we got an offer, then we'd consider it. So we filled in the forms, and within a week, we'd gone in, screen test.
And how did you find the screen test? What was that process like for you?
It was pretty straightforward. It was just in a small room in one of the meeting rooms in the BBC building. We filled in loads of forms before that, so there were a few questions where we just stood and gave I think it was a 60 or a 90-second pitch, as we would do if we were pitching to the Dragons. Signed a lot of contracts, which, yeah, they loved what we were doing, they loved the concept of the business, and they said, we're going to put you forward. It was about the 5th of May, 2014. We were in the studio to film the episode.
So how did it feel going up in the famous elevator?
It's not an elevator. It's literally 2 doors, corridor, 2 doors. So it wasn't even an elevator, you just walk straight through it. So that was the magic of television. Things like that, you start to see, the backdrop we've got here, we've got real windows and real outside. They're very similar looking, but it was just cardboard cutouts and plastic frames for glass and things like that. When we were preparing to go into the den, probably the first mistake we made, we looked at it as a proper investment opportunity. And it was only afterwards that we realised it's just an entertainment show. I think we asked for 150,000 for 10% of the equity. We knew all those numbers inside out. We did all the background preparation. The process just prior, so the day before, was filmed. Building doesn't exist now, but in the old pie factory. We turned up there probably 5 o'clock the previous evening, took along some examples and boxes and things like that. In the room there were probably 6 or 7 other companies, all set up their little stalls and everything to just run through and give a little bit of a background about the business and how we're going to approach the following day. Because it was in Manchester, they actually put us up overnight. That was the start of the issues. So luckily me and Dan, we actually managed to get some tickets to go and watch Man U, last match at season. Ryan Giggs' final ever appearance for Man U, which...
At the age of 65?
I don't know how old he was then, but looking back on it, that was probably the highlight of that day. Put us up in a hotel where it was noisy, the air conditioning didn't work, didn't get an ounce of sleep that night.
You begin to wonder if that's a bit intentional to throw you off your stride.
It's the start of the process. Following morning, we had to be there at 6:45 in the morning, ready to go. We did a little bit of pre-filming in the pretend lift, so we walked through with the boxers. Obviously nothing at the other side at that point. Probably 15-20 minutes worth, and everybody else obviously did similar. And then we were shown into the green room. Then they proceeded for hours and hours not telling you anything. So we got in there probably 8 o'clock in the morning, cup of coffee, another cup of coffee. Nothing was happening. The Dragons obviously hadn't turned up at that point. And then about 11:30, I think they must have been ready to start the filming. So there were 6 businesses sat, and then one by one, they started disappearing. So they go through this door, nothing was said, and they just disappeared. You never saw them again, they never came back. So the room started to empty. I think there were 4 businesses went before us, and by this time we were looking at 3:30 in the afternoon. And being the lad I'm not very fit and everything, and when adrenaline starts, I've probably got 20 minutes adrenaline. When it started at 6:45 in the morning, by the time we got to 3 o'clock, I was absolutely zonked.
So you hadn't slept the night before, you'd been there since before 7.
And on edge, is it now? They tell you absolutely nothing. We were asking 150,000 for 10%. One of the producers came in, took us to one side and said, you're going to have to change your numbers. The Dragons this series haven't invested more than £80,000 on any investment. So you're going to have to change your numbers if you're going to have a chance of getting an investment. Leave it at 10%, but maximum of 80, and tell us in 2 minutes what numbers you're going to go to. That threw you totally, because you'd learnt all your numbers and everything else. And to throw that at you last minute and gave you basically 3 or 4 minutes to decide. And
this is your business, your life, your livelihood?
Everything, selling equity, as you will know, is There's a lot to gain from it, but there's a lot to lose from it as well. So they're not decisions that you just take on the hoof without looking really into it.
It's high stakes stuff.
Yeah, but that then was the start of the let's panic them. So what we're going to do, when we decided we're not going to change his numbers, we were going to go at that. And then suddenly, everything was a rush. They're ready for you now. You need to go now. You need to go now. I was actually dying for a pee. And instead of the toilet that was 30 yards outside the green room, they took me to the other end of the factory. I had to rush down this corridor. Come on, you've got to go in now, you've got to set up now. They gave us 5 minutes to go into the actual den. We set products up on the table and everything. We've been asking to test the technology. So they had a screen, we are going back 10 years now, but they had a screen. We wanted to make sure his website showed properly and everything else. They wouldn't allow us to do anything like that. We got in there, tried connecting, incompatible. So again, there's a big panic on at that point. We got round that, but you're really, really on edge at that point. We set out a table like a market stall, and they brought some screens in, so it screened the table from the dragons. So we planned everything out. We went outside, and about 5 minutes later, the lift doors opened. Straight in front of you, you got the 5 dragons, the lights, the camera. It was absolutely boiling hot. And by this time, like I say, my adrenaline had absolutely gone. We walked in, and the first thing I noticed, they put 4 screens in front of the table. So the order that we were going to go to get us set up, that threw that out straight away. So shit. I got through my first little bit, and on the second bit, I just had brain freeze. I got a few words out, and I just could not remember a thing. Absolutely, it was excruciating. All the dragons are sat there. There's no editing. There's no, we'll do that again. It's just straight through. Luckily, Dan stepped in and came out with the next line. I composed myself a little bit and got it back together. But at that point, I was absolutely sweating like there was no tomorrow. It really did put us on the back foot.
But you seem like such a chill, confident business leader. It was so unexpected to see you struggle a little bit there.
And I do put it down to the build-up. That pressure, that adrenaline, that, I was absolutely zonked. Walked through that door, I could have fallen asleep. I was just empty of anything. First experience of anything like that. But yeah, it was just the start then of basically 2 hours. We were there for 2 hours. 2 hours just getting peppered with questions. So the dragons we had, I looked back the other day, I think we were on Series 12. So you had Duncan Bannatyne, Kelly Hoppen, Deborah Meaden, Piers Liney and Peter Jones.
If you had to go for a beer with one of those, which one?
Peter Jones all day long.
What goes through your head when you're frozen, forgotten your lines, in front of the lights, cameras and dragons? What were you thinking?
I was just numb, absolutely numb. And then the questions started. To be fair to the dragons, we had no interaction beforehand. They were given a page of very, very light notes. They, nothing about your business. And then they've got to start trying to make an impression. What do you do, what you're about and everything else. Duncan Bannatyne, he started off, he's the numbers guy. So how long have you been going? About 6 years. What were your sales 5 years ago? What were your profit 5 years ago? What were it for you? So I knew all the numbers, came out with all the numbers. And his whole questioning really was around the financial side. And I haven't, to be honest, I haven't watched the Dragons Den. I watched probably the first 3 series when it was launched, and I haven't watched it since then because I just thought it was bobbins, to be quite honest. But Duncan Bannatyne's, his job is to grill you on your numbers and get to the point where he can throw his papers up in there. You don't know your numbers, I'm out. But we did know his numbers, and that really frustrated him that he couldn't actually get to that point. Kelly Hoppen, we were 2 rough lads from Yorkshire selling cheap food and drink. She's real high-end, with absolutely nothing in common whatsoever. So although she said a couple of nice things, she wasn't not interested in what we were talking about at all. Piers Liney, right at the beginning, he threw out a comment, we called approved food. And he said, shouldn't you be called old food? And it took us down what you're doing, you're just throwing in rubbish here. And then later on he started talking about a as debts and as loans and things like, oh, you've got too much debt, you've got too much debt. So, you know, I'm out. Ironically, 12 months later, his business went bust because it got too much debt.
Should have listened to his own advice.
Well, yeah, so I had a little chuckle when that happened, to be quite honest, because I remembered that comment. Deborah Meaden, she should have been more interested in us than she was.
Sustainability.
Sustainability. You know, it was early days of that, but she got it, and I think she gets it now. I should have this on a T-shirt. Her classic comment, you know, I take risks, but you're braver than me. And
I'd love that.
Yeah, it's a fantastic comment. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, we are, because obviously you've made some money, but you did that off of your parents' business. You bought that cheap and managed to, you know, develop it from there. So you've never had that absolute startup position where everything's on the line and everything else. So, but that were a classic comment. You're braver than me. I think, yeah, we are. Yeah, absolutely, we are. Peter Jones, he was very interested early in the piece, and this is what got us a bit of the TV time. He got Dan behind the
I love that bit.
behind the table and just doing some of his old market pitching stuff. So that broke the ice a little bit. But from what I can remember, there were just so many just irrelevant questions. They just didn't really. They did get it, but they didn't get it. He came out with some fantastic comments about us as business and the journey we've been on, but it was too early for him. And, you know, come back later and I'll look at investing then. Later's too late, you know, that time has gone. But he came out with some fantastic comments. 2 hours filming, one by one they dropped out, so we didn't get made an offer. So obviously you turn around and you walk out, you go into the pretend lift and they're still filming, and so I put my arm around Dan, and I actually only watched the clip back for the first time yesterday, probably about 3 or 4 years.
You hadn't seen it since?
No, because my mates still take the piss out of me, to be quite honest, because of the clamming up and the sweats, and it's not something I like getting reminded of. One of the key things, you know, when you get that clip on YouTube, and it's been viewed hundreds of thousands of times, obviously you get loads of comments, and I just looked at a couple of comments yesterday, and you know, somebody put there, you know, they must have been some of the nicest rejections ever for, you know, 5 rejections for a business. Yeah, there's some really, really nice things written about us, and customers, you know, they missed a trick, they should have done it and everything. We came out of the den, obviously we were disappointed. The producers, literally within half an hour, said it's a travesty. They should have, you know, they should have, you know, backed you and made you an offer. A couple of weeks later, they got back in touch. Will you go on again? Again, yeah, because they made a mistake. We want you to come on again. But we said, no, we're not interested in that. They actually filmed it, like say, beginning of May 2014. It got broadcast on the 8th of February 2015. So there was nearly a 7-8 month gap between filming and actually broadcasting. And in that 8 months, everything we talked about in the den, what we were going to do with the premises, marketing, people, we'd done all that. So when the episode actually got broadcast, we'd done everything we said we were going to do.
So what happened for you the night the show was aired?
The website just went absolutely crazy. So we were bobbing along, about 100 people, 120 people on the site, and within 30 seconds of the programme starting, we were up 20, 25,000, 30,000. But that smack within 30 seconds on anybody's website is going to do some damage, because it doesn't matter how much preparation you've done, how much memory, all the things you do in the background preparing, you won't have your caches set up correctly. Just a single cache can throw everything off. We crashed. It took us 6-7 hours to put everything back together again. But off the back of that, for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 days, the website was absolutely heaving with customers placing orders. So the power of the publicity was absolutely brilliant.
So when all's said and done, would you recommend people go on the show? I'm
a bit 50-50 on this, because for me, as a personal experience, it was probably one of the lowest I've ever had, just from the freeze and the sweats and everything else. But the publicity was absolutely fantastic. Every year when a new series is coming out, a lot of the newspapers will put together the 10 that got away, and we've mentioned in that 10 that got away list, like yourselves, of everything, of the whole experience, that is the bit that gives me greatest pleasure when I see that coming up time and time again, and also see what we've done with the business since.
If Deborah Meaden was here today, what would you say, sir?
That's a good question. I would actually pick her up on the fact that she couldn't follow through with the sustainability. She knew we had all the elements, and it was this, you're braver than me, there's a risk involved here, and that kind of thing. I'd talked to her about that, because she should have had the power of her conviction and gone ahead and made us an offer. Going back to the filming, there was one or two other absolute non-points thrown in, so took us down a rabbit hole about a small loan we had and a personal guarantee. Dan could lose his house over it. The personal guarantee was limited to 15,000 quid. Dan wasn't going to lose his house. I wasn't going to lose my house.
But these are the things you have to do. You've got to put things on the line to get a small business going. You have to.
Yeah. You've got to take risks, calculated risks, not stupid risks, but calculated risks. And we've done that. We build a lot, in a steady way. It was those doubts put into Deborah about risk and personal guarantees. It was nonsense, but obviously they're making an entertainment television program, so they want to put things in there that will settle you and get you to say things and do things that you wouldn't normally do. They were absolutely experts at doing that. The business now turns over 25 million quid. We do make profits, and we've done that through making every mistake under the sun, going down the grow path, which a lot of businesses go down. If you've got capital behind you, you've got investment behind you, you can burn cash, but only to a certain point. And when that cash runs out and you go back to the well and the well's empty, the business can go bust. So we've actually slowed everything down over the years on the growth side of things. We know as metrics, as KPIs, what we need to do on a daily basis to keep everybody occupied. Last 5 years since we moved to Barnsley, brought the businesses together. PrewFood is now a division of Morris & Son. The holding company is Surplus Group, and the whole sustainability side of the business, we're taking up a lot of notches, because ultimately we are saving resources, we're giving value for money to customers. We're ticking a lot of boxes, especially in this time. So I've been working on the new version of the website for the last 3 years. We're due to launch in June, and it's phenomenal what they put together. But it's not just the front-end website. Our business relies on the back-end systems. We are pretty unique. For example, when Dan started, he had probably 10, 12 products on the website. We've now 13,000 active SKUs.
13,000 things
at any
on your
moment
website.
in time. It's not just a static catalogue though. That is churning at the rate of 150, 200 products a day coming on. Same amount dropping off the other side. We'll buy a pallet of this, a case of that, a truckload of X, and once it's gone, we might never ever see that product again. But that churn, it causes all kinds of complications. And when you're doing it at scale, with the customers, the number of people who are shopping on your site, if you get down to having one item left, who actually controls that item at any split second in time? Whose basket is it in? When does it get released back for sale? And those kind of things are absolutely critical to our business. So we can't sell one item to two people. Our systems have to be absolutely on the nail. And for the efficient picking, packing and shipping side, 13,000 products is a lot of products. So how you lay them out in the warehouse, the journey that the order pickers take, the number of orders they can pick in an hour pack and everything else. Yeah, we're a pretty unique business on the quiet, to be quite honest.
So you've taken in some examples of what you do, including this can of Punky F. It looks familiar.
It's actually past its best before date, that one.
Let's see.
Yeah, have a taste. Yeah, we sell a lot of products that are short dated and past the best before date. I've mentioned earlier, we clear for a lot of organisations.
So how much would I pay for this on your website?
Well, before we talk about paying, that's an example. If you look at the labelling, the writing, that's actually a I can't eat and talk at the same time.
Oh, okay.
But it's actually an authentic Japanese product imported from Japan.
So good.
The problem with it is there's no English labelling on it, so we got the product and then we had to label it up to make it legal for sale. But it just shows part of the variety of what is on the website. Foods from around the world, from real high-end posh products, all the way through to packets of cup of soup and pot noodles and things like that. Now this is a great story. Prime was launched, what was it now, 18 months ago? The hype that went behind that launch was obviously off the scale, absolutely ridiculous. As a marketing job, they did a fantastic job of appealing to the Instagram crowd, the TikTok crowd. The bottles of that were going for stupid money, £500, £100, £50 a bottle. They got that because they restricted the supply and all the hype around it, but it's literally flavoured coconut water. That's all it is. There's probably 15 pence worth of ingredients in that bottle, if that. When all that hype came, we watched it, we stayed well away from it. We never bought any product. We were just waiting for it to come through the supply channels. So we've now clearing Arctic loads of Prime because the best before date's caught up. So that one's July, so it's still got a few weeks left. But over time, the pricing level has just gone down and down and down and down and down. So now today on the website, we've got a case of 12 for sale for £6. So it's like 50p a bottle. I won't tell you exactly what we paid for this stock, but it's in the teens. So to see a product go from £500 down to they'll be on sale at £3 for a pound, £4 for a pound over the next 2 or 3 months. But it just shows an example of hype and products really going to the end of the life cycle. Within 6 months, Prime won't exist any longer. They've gone through the hype. It won't keep the place in the fridges, in the stores. People have tried it and think, don't taste right nice, and it'll disappear as a product. But it's part of the journey that we see all the time about new product launches. New products are launched, they don't get shelf space, they get delisted. The owners of that product then need to try and dispose of it, so and we're the natural home for that kind of thing.
So Andy, what's the most interesting item on the table?
I've got this little thing which one of the customers dropped off with us a couple of weeks ago. I won't tell you what date it's got on it, and I'd like you we'll both try one of these.
Okay, sounds good. So these are cocktail cherries.
So these are maraschino flavour cocktail cherries.
Okay, amazing. There we go, okay. Sweet, juicy, delicious. Love it.
They're lovely.
They're lovely.
Can you guess what best before date they've got?
I'm going to go July 2024, so next month.
Close. You want a second guess?
Okay, let's go July 2022, 2 years out of date.
Right, just read what it says on that cap.
No way. No way. These are 25 years past their best before date.
25 years past the best before.
The best before date is July 1999. 25 years.
That was very risky because obviously I hadn't opened them before, I hadn't tasted them before. Wow. But it just shows as an example how certain products, natural preservatives, things like that.
And they're safe to eat.
Yeah, it's a naturally preserved product. 25 years, it's a long time. But if you think about fruit cake, your Christmas cake, things like that, it gets better with age. It gets better because the natural preservatives, the fruit, the sugars, and yeah, I'm delighted that little example has gone down really well.
I can't believe I've just eaten something 25 years past its best before date. When this passed its best before date, I was 17.
We don't sell them. We haven't got any for sale on the site.
I'd buy some.
I've got to say that. But it just shows the length of time certain products can last past the best before. And tins of soup with 3 years they put on a tin of soup. That tin of soup will last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. As long as the packaging is not damaged in any way, still sealed correctly. Yeah, best before dates, Yeah, very arbitrary.
So are you one of the few people in Britain for whom the cost of living crisis has actually been good for business?
The straight answer is yes, and I've been through now 3 proper economic downturns since I've owned the business. When times get tough, we get busier. People have less money to spend. They're looking for value for money and convenience, and that's what we provide. So it doesn't give me any satisfaction that we're getting busier, because it means the world's a mess. But yeah, it does help us when times get tougher. People are getting access to perfectly good products at exceptional prices in really tough times, and that's our business.
And that can only be a good thing?
Only a good thing.
So you said you put your arm around Dan and said, don't worry, we're going to show them. When did you realise you had actually showed them?
It's a very difficult question, is that there isn't a moment in time, but we just knew the business that we're in was solving a problem that was out there and still continues to be out there. And I'll never say we've made it, but we're on that journey, and it's very satisfying that we're still here today and we're in the strongest position we've ever been in.
Have you seen any of the dragons since the den, and what would you say to one of them if you bumped into them in the pub or the supermarket?
I haven't seen any of them ever again. Obviously, I've watched the show since, I follow them on social media, listen to podcasts. If I saw them, they wouldn't know, they wouldn't have a clue who we were. There's so many businesses go through that sausage machine process. But I'd just say hello and thank them for what they've done for a lot of people over the years.
Would you be tempted to say hello and tell them how well your business is now doing?
Absolutely not. I'm a lad from Huddersfield. But we've grown to what we've grown through our graft and work, and
love that.
It's a number. It's a number.
How much of your success would you put down to luck, and how much just to hard work?
Luck definitely comes into it, but you do make your own luck, and the harder you work, the luckier you get. Yeah, it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true, is that.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
That's another great question. I think it would be go out there and start buying properties early. I've taken a very interesting career path over the years. I'm nearly 60 now, which is horrendous. I would go a different route knowing what I know now compared to then. But I love what I do. I love trading. The thrill you get out of buying something at a price and then being able to sell it at another price. You've solved a problem for somebody, you've solved a problem for somebody else, and in the middle you've made a little bit of a contribution for yourself. So, yeah.
Andy, amazing business, fantastic story, great success story. Thank you so much for joining me today on Dragons Dregs.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.